from the Signature Bank Studios.
Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Tough talk still coming from Canadian leftists. The NDP leader, this guy named Jarmit Singh, who's been among the political leaders in Canada to try to go toe-to-toe with Trump when it comes to tough talk. Well, I wouldn't really call it Trump's tough talk. It's sort of just matter-of-fact talk about what he believes. But the response is sort of the typical wounded animal trying to claw anything he can. Jarmit Singh suggesting that Trump is not welcome in Canada. Trump should not be invited to the G7. And engaging in some ad hominem to beat his chest a little bit.
Donald Trump should not be welcome here. Why would we invite someone who has threatened our very democracy, our very sovereignty? Why would we invite someone who has threatened our economic well-being? Why would we invite someone who threatens our allies and threatens the world's stability? Why would we allow a convicted criminal into our country? Why would we invite someone who has such disdain for multilateral organizations? Instead, what we should do is use the G7 summit as an opportunity to work with our allies on a plan to resist Donald Trump and his dangerous threats to the world.
Mm-hmm. And this follows on Chrystia Freeland, a new Marxist running for prime minister to succeed the outgoing Marxist Justin Trudeau. You know, with a scare story. She's running for PM because of this conversation she had with a little girl.
A few weeks ago in Saskatoon, I met a little 4-year-old girl. She asked me whether I could prevent Trump from invading our country. And that's why I am standing to lead the Liberal Party and to become the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Singh and Freeland are only going to encourage Trump that much more to troll Trudeau and the whole gaggle of them. That's number one. Number two, just on this matter of tariffs, and I've seen some commentary from conservatives about how Trump's seeming antagonism towards the Canadians is keeping the new Marxists in the game here in terms of who succeeds Trudeau. Of course, we want to see Pierre Poilievre, and Trump's policies are negatively impacting the Conservative Party. You know, I'm not really, number one, buying that. I'm not actually also very concerned about it because Poilievre is taking the approach not dissimilar to the new Marxists, just in terms of essentially responding to an America first policy posture with a Canada first policy posture.
Right.
And that's exactly what he should do. Trump actually should be aiding him in advancing that cause and encouraging Canadians to see Poilievre as somebody who can go toe-to-toe, but also work with Trump in a way that the new Marxists will not be able to. So I'm not really, that is not persuasive to me. Trump needs to come off of his position, not because of economic reasons, but because of political ones, because we want Poilievre to replace Trudeau and not one of these off-the-shelf Marxists like Freeland, who is, by the way, just to remember here, that party of Jarmit Singh and that person, Christina Freeland, who was top deputy to Justin Trudeau, they were the lockdowners. They were the ones who debanked the Freedom Convoy outside of Ottawa, those who participated in that. I mean, these are the authoritarians in Canada, and Poilievre should be reminding people about that as well, if he is not.
And I love the way Poilievre handles the media. Remember when he was eating an apple and the guy was asking stupid questions, like, are you done yet? And he kept continuing to eat his apple. I loved it.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into Canadian politics because the matter is more about economics that are in the best interests of America. For more on that, we're pleased to be joined by Anne Bradley, Acton Institute affiliate scholar, Vice President of Academic Affairs for the Fund for American Studies. I'm a graduate of the Fund for American Studies.
Oh, nice.
And a professor of economics at the Institute of World Politics. I did the comparative political and economic systems coursework at Georgetown the summer that I participated in the Fund for American Studies, which is a great program. I mentioned it before on the show. It's got a journalism program, a comparative political and economic systems program, and a journalism program. I know Fred Barnes is a graduate of the journalism program. I think Britt Hume was too.
Oh, good.
Anyway, it's a good summer program if you're a kid in college or you have a kid in college that is interested in any of those areas of discipline. You do some coursework and you do an internship in D.C. Maybe you could do an internship with Doge. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, that'd be great.
Anne Bradley, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I did not know you were a graduate of a TFAS program. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Vixnens was the great.
Yes.
He was the econ professor I had. What a treat that was. He was a giant.
I humbly walk in his shoes. He was a giant.
All right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about tariffs because Trump still holds to it being his favorite word in the English language. And he is moving in that direction with respect to Canada, with respect to Mexico, with respect to the EU. And, the announcement that he made along with his Secretary of Commerce and Treasury Secretary, everybody, of course, singing from the same hymnal. Look, reciprocal is the word of the day when it comes to trade. You raise trade barriers, we raise trade barriers. You lower trade barriers, we lower trade barriers. We have superior leverage because you need our market. And so ostensibly for the free market set, the hope is that he's right and it will compel our trading partners to lower so that we lower as well and we get more free trade. What's wrong with that approach?
Well, I mean, the ultimate goal, as you have stated it, is exactly correct, and economists are absolutely unanimous on this idea, which is that more free trade is better than more constrained trade, and that's what tariffs do. They constrain markets' ability to move goods and services across borders. And so there's just no question on the economic side that free trade should be the goal. The question, as you've raised it here, is do tariffs allow us to get to that position? And it seems to me to be a very counterintuitive kind of idea that you can say, well, you have these tariffs on us, so we're going to respond with these tariffs on you, and that the reciprocity somehow is going to get us to freer trade. I'm very suspicious of that idea. In the last few weeks, what we've seen is that when the administration has announced tariffs on Mexico, Canada, Colombia, the immediate response has been, okay, we're going to see your tariffs and raise you with a set of tariffs. And so I liken it to the bully in the schoolyard. If you slap someone, that first they might kind of duck and cover and try to hide from you. But if you keep slapping them, they're going to slap you back, and both people end up on the ground bloodied and hurt. That's not free trade. And so I think we need to be very careful about trying to use anti-trade measures to get more free trade. Because in the short term, what it does, it just gets us more tariffs. And tariffs are a tax. And the people that are going to pay that tax are not only foreigners, but American consumers and American producers. And I think that gets left out of the argument many times because we don't just import final goods, we import goods that are used to make other goods. And so American firms really pay tariffs in a steep way because their production costs increase.
Well, and here's the thing. The thing about this is arguing about the economics in one sense, but it's just arguing about what you want. I mean, this is just transparency, the way I describe it, because I've been getting in these arguments with fellow Trump supporters since he arrived on the scene about this. Look, if you want to say, hey, it's worth me paying more at the retail store of my choosing, even at the pump, if it means onshoring American jobs, if it means reducing our trade deficit. I don't tend to think that's a big deal, but other people do. But I'm willing to do that. I understand what you say the consequences are. It's basic economics. If these things play out as they have historically. And I'm willing to pay the premium to do that. But that's fine. I mean, I don't think that's the way we should make policy. I disagree with imposing those burdens because I'm in the Bastiat school of, look at all economics through the eye of the consumer. But at least let's just be transparent about the consequences. And you say those are acceptable terms to me. That's fine. But the problem is we get into this conflation of what the economics tell us is going to happen and what we are or are not willing to accept for particular reasons.
Correct. And I think, the irony here is that the people who are able to deal with the cost increases that result from tariffs are wealthy people. And if you look at the mandate that Trump claims that he has, and I believe he does have to some extent, which is people are worried about all sorts of things when it comes to the economy. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about rising prices. They're worried about their standard of living. They should be worried about those things because, in fact, our lives, our ability to care for our families, and the future generations. And so those are good things to be worried about. But I think the people that bear the brunt are the people that are middle class and below. And so that's what, we can say, okay, I'm willing to accept all of this, but then who bears the burden of it? I think additionally, if we're worried about employment, which again is something we should be worried about, the economy is doing very well in that regard right now. It's not tariffs. It's not trade policy that's affecting jobs. Jobs are mostly related to our domestic policy decisions and our business cycles. And so again, it's your point that I think this all gets conflated because when you're putting a tweet on X or however we say that now, right, you can't go into all the details. And it sounds very attractive to say, I'm going to punish China. They're the bad guys. I'm going to punish Canada. They may be the good guys, but they're not doing what I want. And so we're going to slap these tariffs and everybody's just going to do what the U.S. wants. And I think we have to tell the longer story, which is that tariffs hurt the people that we want to help. Yeah, and we should not be doing that.
Well, you also have to look at, too, just in terms of the full picture, look at the number of industries, particularly the bigger employers and the percentage of their workforces that are directly related to a foreign trade. And so that a reduction in foreign trade is, imperils domestic jobs here. That stands to reason, but it's sort of not part of the conversation because we do this sort of home team thing where it's like right. USA versus Canada. Well, USA is America is not a corporation. I don't benefit if America sells one more widget or some industry gets protected from competition. I'm not benefiting. I'm not an employee of corporation America. There are employees of particular businesses in particular sectors, and some people are getting protections and other people are not. Some people have exposures and other people are not. So it's so much more complicated, and it's easier to do it like in a sports metaphor binary of it's just Team USA versus Team Canada. But that's doesn't give you a picture of what's really going on.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that it's this idea that you're alluding to, which is very important, is that there's winners and losers. Distortionary trade policy via tariffs or other protectionist measures create winners and create losers. And that's why you see corporations run, to Congress to advocate for the very details of the trade policy because they want to protect their industry, or trade unions, right? They don't want us to import products that are made with much or elsewhere. So we have to be very worried about who we're going to institutionalize as winners and losers. And we don't want to make American firms that produce things and create jobs and American consumers who buy things we don't want to make them pay the price. So I think it's right what you're saying. The home team jersey, it's a feel-good idea. It sounds like we can get on board with that. And I always think about this when I go to the grocery store. My colleagues make fun of me because, I think the grocery store is an amazing way to think about economics. And in particular, how did all that stuff get there? It's an amazing, miraculous thing that we take for granted every day. And when you think about bananas, you do not want a Made in the USA sticker on your banana because we don't have the climate to grow bananas. We could do it, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, and that's economics. It's much better for us to import bananas, which we do, from Latin America. That makes us richer. You don't want the Made in the USA sticker on. You want Made in Ecuador, which is on your banana, by the way. So I think it's like being proud of the wrong things. And we need to speak into this moment and say, free trade is pro-consumer, as you said, the Bastiat school, right? And we want to protect not just rich, wealthy people, but Americans who are struggling, who gave a presidential mandate to help stop that struggling. Tariffs won't help that.
Whatever happened, I mean, the North American Free Trade Agreement became the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement in 2020. But, to eliminate tariffs and other trade barriers on goods and services, where does that fit into all of this?
It's kind of interesting because, that was under the first Trump administration, and now under the second Trump administration, he seems very much committed to tariffs, to doubling down on this idea. And I can't explain fully why, other than to say, I think in many cases people view trade as a zero-sum game. Tariffs are very appropriate if you view trade as zero-sum, which means if I import, then I'm losing to the country that I import from. I need to just export all the time. Adam Smith called this the mercantile system, and of course he railed against it. David Ricardo railed against it because, Adam Smith very famously said it would be imprudent for us to make at home what we could buy outside of our home. So I have a trade deficit at my grocery store. This makes me very wealthy. So, free trade with our neighbors, Mexico and Canada, is the most important kind of question of free trade because transportation costs are lower when you're closer. We want to be allies with our neighbors for obvious geopolitical reasons. And so it doesn't make any sense to kind of undo the free trade benefits from NAFTA. And I think we just need to speak into this moment. Like I said, economists, I think, need to speak into this moment and say, this is not what's going to make America great again. I believe we should make America great again, or greater than it has been. We should always strive for greatness, but this is not going to do it. So we don't want to undo the benefits of the past. And this is, think about the EU, which is not part of your question, but I think relevant. The EU is a giant free trade zone.
Right.
That is the point. And so to say we're going to now put tariffs on this free trade zone, that's going to further isolate us. So I think these are just bad ideas that really need to be dismantled.
Well, at minimum, it'd be nice if everybody took to a quick read or reread of Leonard Reed's I Pencil essay, because that sort of crystallizes it in concrete terms. The banana example you gave is pretty good, too. Yeah. Ann Bradley, Acton Institute affiliate scholar, the Vice President of Academic Affairs for the Fund for American Studies, and Professor of Economics at the Institute of World Politics. Ann Bradley, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I saw a T-shirt recently, and it said, "Too much of anything is bad unless we're talking about bacon." Now, we can debate all day long